Welcome back to the S&S Grills channel. I'm Greg from Ballistic Barbecue, and today I'm going to be showing you how to cook up the perfect ribeye steak on the Slow N Sear kettle. Let's get going. So I actually started this cook-off last night by dry brining a beautiful USDA prime ribeye steak. Now to do this, you're going to want to use about 1/2 teaspoon per pound of kosher salt. Just season the steak how you normally would on both sides. Now if you're using regular table salt, you're going to want to use about 1/4 teaspoon per pound. Table salt disappears very quickly and you don't want to risk over salting your steak. After it was seasoned, I placed it on a rack, put the rack on top of a cookie sheet, and put it in my refrigerator, uncovered overnight. And this is how the steak has been transformed. As you can see, it's this beautiful ruby red color. So what's happening is the salt on the surface of the steak is actually bringing water out of the steak onto the surface. It liquefies that salt, and then the steak brings that season, that liquefied salt, back into the meat. And what you end up with is a perfectly seasoned, very, very juicy steak. It's an amazing technique. And I can tell you this, I was very skeptical at one time about this, but it works. And you owe it to yourself to at least try it once. Take my word for it. I'm going to go ahead and show you now how we're setting up the kettle. So as you can see, I have the Slow N Sear and the drip and griddle in place. To the Slow N Sear, I'm going to add about 25 fully lit charcoal briquettes. Go ahead and put the spin grate in place. I want the hinged portion over the top of the coals. Going to go ahead and set up my temperature probe, and I'm using the new S&S 500 thermometer for this cook. Put that lid on, and I want the damper over the side where there's no charcoal. I'm going to set the top damper to about 1/3 open, fully close that bottom damper, and then open that smoke hole to where it's about 1/3 of the way open. Now I plan on running this cooker between 225 and 250, so once it hits my target temp, we'll go ahead and start cooking that steak. Okay, we are now at 238 degrees, well within that range I'm looking for of 225 degrees Fahrenheit and 250 degrees Fahrenheit. So let's cook that steak, finally. So we're starting this cook-off in direct heat, so steak over the area where there is no charcoal. I'm going to monitor the temperature, obviously, of the steak. Again, on a really thick steak like this is thick, it's like 2 inches thick. Rather than sticking the thermometer through the top and then having to remove it when I flip it, I'd rather stick it through the middle, kind of gauge where I want it to be, make sure that's not, sticking into the fat, and put it right in there. So now it's right here in the meatiest part of this steak. I want a little smoke on this cook, so I'm going to add a nice chunk of hickory to the charcoals. Get that lid on. Now all I have to do is monitor the temperatures of both the kettle and the steak. I do not want to let this kettle exceed that 250 degree threshold that I've set. So if it does, all I have to do is shut the dampers down a little bit. I also don't want it to drop below that 225 degree baseline that I set. So if it does, just have to open the dampers up a little bit. Easy stuff. Now my target temperature for the steak is 115 degrees Fahrenheit. My ultimate goal is to come out with a medium rare steak. So for this technique, for the indirect portion, we want to shoot for 20 degrees below my target temperature. Now, once the steak hits 80 degrees Fahrenheit, we're going to flip it and then just continue cooking it to the 115. Once it hits 90 degrees, I'm going to light up a full charcoal chimney of charcoal to set the kettle up for the sear, which is, that's the fun part. I'll see you guys on the flip side. We just hit 80 degrees. So you can see I'm getting a really nice color. So now the next milestone will be that 90 degree mark when I light up the chimney of charcoal. Other than that, it's 115 degrees Fahrenheit when I pull the steak prior to the sear. That usually takes anywhere from 50 minutes to an hour to achieve, and we're right on track for that time frame. I'll see you then. All right. We just hit that 115 degree mark. Get the steak out of the way. Now I'm going to remove this grate. Now that's a very important step, removing that grate. and allowing it to cool down completely before we start the sear. The reason is we don't want a hot grate burning into the steak. We want that intense, even heat from the charcoal searing the steak. And you'll see the results are amazing. We're going to end up with a perfectly seared steak, gorgeous color. My mouth is starting to water right now. What I'm going to do now is show you how we're going to prep the steak prior to the sear. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is just make sure we get any moisture off of the steak. We're doing this because we want the heat to not have to work as hard, if that makes any sense, to get that really nice sear. If it's wet, then it has to evaporate that moisture before it really starts cooking the meat. Now I have some extra virgin olive oil I'm just going to brush on. This is actually going to help the sear. Some fresh black ground pepper. All right, we're ready for the sear now. Let me go ahead and get the charcoal added in the Slow N Sear. And this is where it gets fun. I love this technique. Fully open the bottom damper. Right, I have a full basket of lit charcoal. Now the top's not completely lit, so we'll get it in here and stir it around and let it get really good and going. This looks good. Literally gave it another 2 minutes. Get that steak on the grill. And get that cold side over the fire. And we're going to sear this for 1 minute per side 4 times, so a total of 4 minutes. That's what it's all about, right there. Okay, I'm gonna let this rest a little bit, then give you guys a try. So I rested this about 10 minutes. My favorite part right here. That is absolutely beautiful. Beautiful. Perfectly cooked. That's why I like that technique. All right. You just cannot deny that. So juicy. Wow. Little nugget of goodness right here. Like I said, perfectly seasoned, juicy as all get out. Then you top that off with a crust like that. This technique has kind of ruined really good steak shops for me and my wife. It's just hard to beat this. Real caramely flavor, a hint of char, but not too much. Kind of sweetness. I mean, it's perfect. Now close your eyes and picture this. This is going to be my lunch. Well, I'm a nice guy, so I'm actually sharing half of it with my wife, but this is our lunch today, and I'm stoked. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you stopping by and watching my video here. If you have not subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell so you get notified when new videos pop up. And if you like it, give it a big old thumbs up. Remember, 2 zones are better than 1. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.